Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Willington podcast. I have with me today Russell McCluskey, who is now the head of... Can you give me your title? Because I probably don't know the full title yet.
Yeah, so I suppose I just call myself head of sport, but yeah, it's director of sport, and it goes across both the junior and the senior school at King's.
Yeah, because
just up the road.
That was quite a recent move, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was coming to the end of my fourth year at the school, and in September I was appointed as director of sport for both schools.
Yeah. So has that been quite a learning curve?
It's been. Do you know what? I've really enjoyed it massively, because I think you just get that element of having taught senior separately and prep separately, and now combining the two, being able to track the boys from 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, all the way through to hopefully they're 18 and they leave King's. And we've got a cohort of boys, our current under 16s, who I coached as under 13s, under 15s, and then they will play, the vast majority of them will play first team at some stage over the next 2 years. And this is rugby, obviously, in the first term. And to be able to have watched them develop from 12 years old, and by the time they leave us, they'll be 18, it's been quite remarkable, really. So, yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of kids to look after and make sure that the programme runs correctly. But at the same time, we're very fortunate at King's. We've got an awful lot of PE and game staff and common room staff who help out along the way.
Yeah, that's the best bit for me. That's the best bit of coaching, seeing the progression from young. So you're in a great position.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the thing you can implement, you say goodbye to your sports people at 13, but we can put things in, strategies, training sessions that we know we're going to benefit from when they're into their adolescent years and older than that. So we get them to play. We get the 12 and 13-year-olds to play the way we want the first team to play. And then, it's less coaching down the line and more them expressing themselves in the format that we want. And again, I suppose I'm talking about rugby at the moment, but that's across all our core sports, football, hockey, cricket as well. So
Does it feel like a long way since the old Denmead days from when we used to lock horns?
Do you know what? It's funny, isn't it? Because, I did. And it was the best thing for me. And if there were any teachers listening to this now, I just did senior only for 7 years and then took a career break to go and play rugby in Australia when I was about 28, and came back and got a job at Denmead, which is now Hampton Prep. And as most people will know, that's, for me, that was year 3. Well, I did year 2 sport as well. So it's year 2 to year 6. And I'd never taught anything like that in my life. And it was the best thing for my practice going. I can comfortably say for 2 years I was very subpar as I was learning how to do it. And then for 3 years after that. So I spent 5 years there, and still did some stuff at Hampton in the senior school. A tiny bit, not much, just to keep my hand in. But it was, career-wise, it was definitely the best thing I did without knowing it at the time.
Yeah. So moving on to our current situation.
Yeah.
What kind of a quarantine person are you? Are you a happy one? Or are you frustrated? Where do you sit?
Yeah, massively frustrated. I mean, I totally get it, and stay safe. And I've kept my distance from everybody but my family, who I live with, but sometimes kept my distance from them as well. But this sounds, I suppose it sounds a bit sycophantic, but I love my job and I love school and I love teaching, and I miss it desperately. And the remote world started a week before Easter for us and has continued today, and it's not quite the same. I taught a GCSE PE lesson this morning to my year 11 boys, and I miss them. I miss being in the classroom with them. But it was, we did what we could online. So, yeah.
I think I'm like you. It's the part of the job I love the most, is being outside, and I'm built for it. Yeah. And I think you, like me, were a sportsman beforehand, so we've always been outside. We've always been running around. We've always been doing stuff, and all of a sudden, we're indoors. And I actually think, although I suppose the senior element of your job now has that teaching part where you could be sat in a classroom doing some bits and pieces, but I felt for sport, quarantine really hit us quite hard because we didn't have any resources online that were readily available. So in terms of all that online stuff that you've no doubt been doing and we've had to do, it's quite a steep learning curve, isn't it, to get all that going?
Massively, and I couldn't agree more with you there. And I couldn't. It was a case of trying to learn, literally hour by hour, how to use iMovie, how to create content, how to put together a live PowerPoint show, and it all happened literally overnight. And we had to upskill ourselves, which was brilliant. But at the same time, I think for some it was quite frightening. And it's been a challenge, and it's stuff that you want the pupils to find interesting and challenging, but at the same time that they'll engage with. And it's hard to know with PE games whether they're engaging with it, because they will do what they want to do. Whereas English, maths and science, they have kind of tangible work that they will produce. So
yeah, because we've also found as well, a lot of our children's computers are in a spare room or in a bedroom. So in terms of doing a live session, it's very hard. You know, we haven't been able to do that. I want to do like a body coach style session. But
I have. Interesting you should mention him, because I think what he did was brilliant in terms of engaging the nation and all that kind of thing. But actually, to call it PE was, and I won't get onto this because we could spend an hour chatting about it. It certainly wasn't PE, but at the same time, movement is movement, and wasn't it brilliant that everybody kind of got on board with it? So
I had that exact chat with my wife last night, because she keeps thinking I'm jealous of him because I'm always saying, well, it's not PE, it's not PE. but yeah, I mean, that is a completely different one. But I found I'm funny with this situation because my wife had us busy until July, every weekend. And obviously when you play rugby and when you're working, you don't get much time at home. And I've actually relished these last, whatever it is, 5 weeks, just being at home, being able to get jobs done. Never, ever been able to get jobs done. And it's been like every cupboard has been sorted. You know, everything's been done. I've loved that part of it, being at home, being able to sort.
Yeah, that's been great. And also with the new job, I've been training. I don't know about you, but I've been training less than I normally would do. I like to keep myself fit and healthy. And I actually took some equipment from school. So I took an ergo rowing machine, and I took some dumbbells.
Did you?
And I did. On the day that we were told that we were our last day in school, I quickly loaded up the car with a few bits that I thought I might need, because you had a feeling it was going to be quite a while until I saw the place again. And so I've been getting on the rowing machine because stupidly, I'm not a rower, even though I look like one. And the boys have challenged me. Our GB boys have challenged me to the British Rowing Indoor Championships, which is taking place I think it takes place every year in December. So fingers crossed by then I'll be in a bit of shape, and they'll be able to be held. So
that's very lucky having an indoor thing. Annoyingly, I'd Hamish actually. So for those listening, Russell and I have a mutual friend, Hamish, who's my daughter's godfather, and Russ went to school with him. Went to uni with him. But he gave me a turbo trainer, which I've used for the last year or so. About 2 months ago, got rid of it because it was noisy, and I thought I'd get a new one. And then never has there been a better time to have a turbo trainer, and you obviously now can't buy one for love nor money.
You can't get anything, can you? I tried to get a golf net, you know, that you can use your irons into, and actually your driver, and you can't get one of those for love nor money. But what I did get hold of was the plastic airflow golf balls, and they have been phenomenal. It was a recommendation of a mate of mine who's a serious golfer, and I've effectively got like a 4-hole course in the garden now, which is just brilliant. Although the lawn's taking a battering, so we'll see.
So, just having to think about one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on here was to talk about sports scholarships. Because I think there's probably a misconception. It's always been with any of the prep schools I've been at. There hasn't been the communication between the senior schools, possibly to the prep schools, about what kind of sportsman you're looking for. And I think a lot of people look at it as we can get money off this way, we can do this way. It's kind of an easy way into a school, but actually it isn't. There's a huge market for sports scholarships. So I just wondered, firstly, the kind of attributes you're looking for at King's in terms of, I suppose, from a mental side and from a physical side and a size side, and what it kind of entails. What if you've got a sports scholarship? What does that give you in terms of bursaries? I know a lot of schools don't do many bursaries anymore, and also the training that you might get when you arrive at a school having got a sports scholarship.
Yeah, so I suppose each school is very unique. The first thing, and having done a bit of investigation with colleagues in other senior schools, there's these rumours go around about certain schools offering, 110%, for example, to a sports scholar, which basically covers fees, clothing, tours, travel, and those kind of things. I'm not entirely sure whether that's the truth, and I think there's bursary schemes in most schools whereby you can apply, and if you've got certain talents, you might stand a better chance for a bursary. With our sports scholarship, you need to get a place into the school first and foremost. You won't get a place because of it. So you already have to have a place at King's and having sat the exam and the interview process. And it's not worth a lot of money at all. It's as a percentage of the fees, it's almost nothing off, because we took a decision that rather than have a big sports scholarship reduction, the money that could be used there goes towards our bursary scheme. So offering free places to students who need them. But for us, it's kind of 11 plus. It's a 2-day process, and that's before the exam. So we get an awful lot on day one. We get about 150 pupils on day one, and then we thin it down to a week later when we'll see probably only about 25, 30 pupils that we've liked from day one. And then the exam and the interview takes place from there. And then potentially you get offered a place. And if you are one of the people we like sport-wise, then you'd be offered a scholarship on that front. At 13 plus, you've already got a place, and you'll go up against our junior school boys as well at that stage. And that's normally at 13 plus, we normally have 15 to 20 total boys on the scholarship day from there. So yeah, that'll be my daughter in the background. Like most people now working from home, they can their children around them. So
there's nowhere to escape now, is there?
She's gonna try and get on the pod. I can tell. She's gonna try and get on the pod. Bless her. She's currently got I think it's a My Protein chocolate milkshake bottle that she's delighted with. So. But yeah, so sorry, going back to the scholarship process. I mean, during the 13 plus one, during the day, you'll be with us for a full day. You'll get tested in the core sports, which are rugby, football, football, hockey, tennis, and cricket. We'll get you to choose between tennis or cricket, but we'll have a look at you at both football and hockey, even though they sit together in the spring term.
Yeah.
And you'll have a session with the head of sport for that sport, and they'll put you through their paces. It's a bit of a masterclass session to try and sell sport at King's, but at the same time, it's our head of sport, our head of football, head of rugby, having a really close look at what you're like out on the sports field.
Yeah. And what type of sportsman are you looking for? Because I know after your conference, we had that chat about, because we'll have some good B team players and some good A team players who are good in a sport, who think, right, well, I'm going to go for a sports scholarship because I've got skills in that sport. But what are you looking for?
Yeah, for me, first thing, for full scholarship, I'm looking for somebody who's going to contribute across ideally 3 terms. So we're looking for somebody who will choose rugby in the first term, hockey or football in the second term, and then cricket or tennis in the third term. If they're 2 out of 3 terms, that's okay. If they're exceptional in 1 term and then they're not going to offer in the other 2 terms, that's fine as well. But we're looking for a multi-sport athlete. And I think at 12, 13, I don't know if you'd agree, 12, 13, I think it's too soon to say that you're going to go and try out for a sports scholarship and you're just a tennis player or you're just a cricketer. I think you've got to be really careful there, because you're too young to go one sport, and really we want you contribute. If we're going to give you an award like that, we want you contributing across the year and being a role model for those in your year group and those younger as well. Yeah.
And is it a size thing, a speed thing? What kind of catches the eye? Well, if you can't, if you're not maybe going across the 3 sports, what might get you noticed? I always tell the kids to wear odd socks, brightly coloured, luminous odd socks, which is what I was told for like county rugby. And you'll either get noticed for being great or for terrible, I suppose. But
no, so I did the opposite actually in Australia. I turned up to my trial at the club in Brisbane, and I went plain. So I went unbranded rugby shorts, unbranded socks, and then a plain white T-shirt that I bought from like Woolworths or something like that. and apparently that got me noticed, because they were like, we just looked at you and thought, why is he in nothing that shows a club or anything like that? And I thought, well, I'm just going to go playing, and hopefully my play speaks for itself. But
yeah,
we look. It was funny this year, not to give too much away, but there was some real genetic potential of some of the candidates in the 13 plus and the 11 plus, and you've got to look at that. And we had a great debate, didn't we, about Harlequins and what they're looking for at the moment, and they're looking for the big, quick boys, and they're going to upskill them. I'm a bit different. You can't overlook somebody with unbelievable pace or who is a big boy for his age, but at the same time, you want a sports person, don't you? You know, I'm tall and thin for a rugby player. I'm not going to be rude. You're on the shorter side.
I'm the opposite.
But we've both done all right out of the game, haven't we? So do you know what I mean? And I want to see a sports person, but I want to see those qualities of kind of resilience, coachability, determination. The reason we put hockey in the 11 plus and the 13 plus is because it's a core sport. But equally, we know a lot of the boys who turn up won't have played it, and we want to see how they adapt to. That's a load of Lego bricks being thrown around the floor. Can you hear that? No, we want to see how the boys adapt. To having a sport they've never played, and to see whether for that hour they're going to listen and be coached by our head of hockey. So
that resilience is key. We're trying. So I've done a lot of that. So this year I had my under 9s and I have my under 11s. And we did a lot of that kind of gamification stuff where it's just we play touch rugby as soon as they come out. And then I'm just adding in loads of rules. And it's interesting to see the very sporty boys who can't cope with rules being changed and things not working to their way, and, you know, terrible refereeing decisions, which obviously I do on purpose. But people really struggled with it, and it's so interesting to watch the kids who really, you know, go within themselves, and those who thrive and just try things and give it a go, and they're shining.
You don't want to see a robot, do you? You don't want to see somebody who's overly coached in one sport, who perhaps has been coached at their Sunday club constantly for the last few years and has been coached one way of playing. And you want to see them being able to adapt to the situation. And we also look at how they interact with each other. So we have a session where it's unstructured, so it's just after lunch. So we sit them all kind of mixed up at lunchtime. I'm not really giving away any trade secrets. This happens at loads of schools, and I'm happy for people to know it. But then the unstructured play is interesting because we let them just kind of go in the sports hall and see whether they play and get on with each other, and just put some basketballs in there and see what they do, or maybe put some table tennis tables in there. And you learn a lot about kind of cooperation, don't you? And sportsmanship as well. Does somebody go over and introduce themselves and say, look, should we have a little game of one-on-one basketball or something like that? So it's all those traits, isn't it? It's not necessarily the boy who turns up in his Surrey County gear, because, you know, that's fine and kudos to them, but it does that mean that they're going to contribute how we want them to at Kings? So there's an awful lot. I think there's way more goes into it than the parents and the boys and other staff realise. So
it's interesting you talk about that free play bit, because I really do think that we get in the way sometimes as coaches. And I actually did this thing with my under 11s where for the final 2 games, I'm not very vocal anyway. I don't stand on the pitch shouting at the boys. But I probably spoke more because I talk about line speed a lot, and I'd give them little cues every so often. But the last 2 games of the season, I basically said, it's all up to you. So the training session before the match, and then the match, I said nothing. And weirdly enough, it was our best 2 games that the boys played ever. You know, and it's not like I don't think they played within themselves when I was talking to them, but they just seemed to play, and it was so good to see.
And it takes a brave coach to do that. And I think that sometimes being quiet on the touchline, and this is going off on a bit of a tangent, but being quiet on a touchline to the parents and to the boys means that you don't care. But actually, everything we're told is to let them become decision makers themselves out there. And I'm probably a little bit too vocal at times, but it's more kind of geeing the boys up rather than giving them technical cues. And certainly with the first team, you know, if they're 17, 18 years old out there, you know, in a tight game, we were fortunate enough to get to a national quarterfinal this year, and they've got to do it themselves. We can't get them out of there. And as much as we have 3 coaches on the first team, we're very lucky. They've got to. The fly half's got to lead. The captain's got to lead. So,
that was actually our last text on WhatsApp I saw. for me saying good luck against Sherburn.
Yeah. Sadly, the wrong side of it. It would have been, I think it was Whitgift in the semi-final, so they didn't get any easier.
No, I love that competition. We actually went to. I got invited to Epsom to go and watch them versus Wellington.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe the standard.
Yeah,
the standard it was unbelievable. Like, I think the Wellington backs are coached by Will Greenwood, I think, as well. And it was just
he's done some work. So a great friend of mine, his two sons play in that team. Okay. So interesting enough, are sports scholars at Wellington. And I remember a few years ago we had a conversation about what Wellington would look for in a sports scholar, and I said I could only go from what I would look for, and I could only guess at what their day will look like. And interesting enough, it was a little bit different to ours. Some similarities, and so he's got a son who plays 6 and a son who plays 7. So
really, in that team,
in the first team, So I think
one of them was big. I remember.
So his son who plays 7 is in the lower 6th, and his son who plays 6 he's actually in year 11, so plays up a year group. So he was probably on the bench that day, but I know it was quite a game, wasn't it? Wellington. They had a good day that day.
That is literally my dream, to have 2 sons that play 6 and 7 sports scholars.
It's great, isn't it?
That is everything I ever wanted.
Yeah, it's great. They go well. But they're a great example of boys who did everything. They played every sport they were told to play, and then actually outside of that, they surf and they windsurf, and they do all these things. They kayak, and they just do loads of physical activity outdoors, and they don't get bogged down with just playing rugby. And they're both at Harlequins, and they're both doing really well. So
and that is the most important thing, isn't it? Just getting out there, playing as many. I once got asked at the gate by a mum. I think their son was about 8, and she said, "Should we just specialise in football?"
Yeah,
and I kind of said, "Well, you wouldn't specialise just in maths at 8, would you? You'd do English and geography and science, and so you've got to do it all."
No, and that's a great answer, isn't it? And you wouldn't just choose one subject early on, and I think it's the same with sport as well. It's 100% in my mind the same with sport, and you've got to do many things. We had an Olympic medalist rower speak at our rowing dinner a couple of months ago, and she spoke about the fact, rowers are well known for specialising quite early on, and she said she didn't, up to 18, 19, she was still playing other sports. And then she got her Olympic gold, and in the lightweight double scull, and it was great to hear her say that to the boys in the room, because a lot of the rowers do want to specialise early. So
yeah. And actually, we have actually got a tennis player in year 5 who I think is top 5 in the country, and he kind of has specialised early, so it might work. There are obviously going to be kids that do it, but I read as well with him, there are, I think Federer played 9 or 10 sports, and then specialised quite late. So Federer, big multi-sportsman, and then I think it was Morné Morkel. Do you remember the South African quick? I think it was Morné Morkel, but he was a big multi-sportsman. If you listen to McCaw, guys, people like that, they played a bit of everything. Top footballers have played a bit of everything. But massively important. That's why, going back to the sports scholarship, we're looking for the next King's multi-sportsman. So, and I'd look at our fly half right now, who's in the lower 6th, who, plays centre defence in the football term and keeps wicket and bats a bit in the cricket term for the first team as well. So, he was the kind of sportsman. Kind of sportsman we wanted, because I think at Willington now we're producing athletes, multi-sport athletes. That's what I don't see us dominating in any one sport. We are proficient in all of the sports, and then we've got guys who will then do cross country, and we've got tennis, and we've got a few other things. But I think it's interesting because what I'm trying to do with this podcast, and with hopefully I'll talk to the Epsom guy and Reeds and get across some of these other senior schools to find out what they're looking for. But we've got these athletes that can play all sports. So hopefully that will, in terms of sports scholarships, or just getting boys out into these senior schools playing good sport level of sport, hopefully our program's pushing them in that direction. So
and in the prep environment, which I've been in, the junior prep environment, I was in there for years. You want to win. You want to win trophies for the boys, the top boys, and you want to win fixtures. Of course you do, but you're actually starting them on their journey, really, and you're kind of cementing good principles, good training ethics, and what you're saying is the kind of sportsman you want coming to a senior school. And if boys are in their B, C, D teams now, we had a boy who played 14C rugby, and then he played 15A the next year. And when we beat Dulwich, we beat Dulwich 20-0 in a cup game at home, and there was 2 Harlequin scouts there, and he was the boy they chose as wanting to come along for training. And he played 14C a year before. It's remarkable.
That's amazing.
Everybody's on a little journey, aren't they? Who knows when they'll get to the top of their sport. So.
And funny enough, I wrote a reference this morning for a boy who I think is going to Epsom, and I actually said I think his best years are about to happen in sport. Yep. He's a good sportsman. I think that's the shame, really, from my point of view, is I'm not going to see him do what I think he will do, because he's grown into himself. I think his mum and dad are both over kind of 6'1", 6'2", and I think he's just started to grow, and he's turned into a big, powerful boy. And it's like, oh no, he's just turned into that, and I'm losing him. But,
and he will, and like you say, potential first team, whatever he wants to be at Epsom. So and it's great. And I remember keeping an eye. So the Wellington boys, they were at Denmead. And that's how I got to know. That's how I got to know the family, and it's been great tracking their progress. Said goodbye to them at 11, and then now they're 16, 17, 18, and you're seeing them what they've turned into. So
Now, have you had any? And I'm still really waiting for this. I'm waiting for my call from a kid I taught back in about 2009 to say, Mr. Gibbs, I'm playing for England next week. Here are some free tickets. Have you had anything come through?
No, nothing. I've never been fortunate enough to. That probably speaks volumes for my coach. I don't know it that way, but if it were ever going to happen, it would potentially be these two boys. But no, yet to get the mention on TV. I want to thank my PE teacher.
Exactly. Yeah, because I think it was Lewis Ludlam before his first England match before the World Cup. He tracked down his PE teacher and got her tickets. And I actually retweeted it. Was just like, boys, just mentioning this. Don't if you ever make it. I know there are 5 other people in the department, but hopefully you'll choose me.
You head up the department. You want that. You want that.
I want those tickets. Yeah. Right, Russ. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to finish just with 5 quick fire questions. Nice and easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
What book are you reading?
Oh, blimey, that's terrible.
Is there even time?
Do you know what? I've got a 15-month-old who's terrorised me during this pod. What book am I reading? I'm not reading a book at the moment, but I did read the All Blacks book. Is that Legend? Is it called
Legacy?
Legacy, that's
Legacy,
it. Yeah, I did read it. So if there were a recommendation, read that, definitely. If you're a business or sport, read that.
Favourite sportsman of all time and why?
Favourite sportsman.
I didn't brief you on these, you see, so it's a bit harder.
No, that's all right. I'm thinking now. Favourite sportsman, rugby player with a great work ethic, training wise.
See, mine. I'm talking professional sport for you. It doesn't have to be a kid at school, if that's where you're going.
Yeah, professional. No, professional without.
See, I had Richard Hill. For me,
really, do you know?
I've never replaced him. I'm
going to say Simon Shaw, just because what a mountain of a man, and he's just phenomenal. To play. Didn't he play for the Lions when he was 35? Just incredible.
I remember a really funny podcast with the House of Rugby with James Haskell, where he was saying Shaw would play on a Saturday, his body would be dust through Sunday all the way to Friday. He'd do the captain's run, and then he'd play Saturday again.
And then get man of the match. He was incredible. 2009 Lions in South Africa, was it?
Because he was on the 99 Lions, was he? No, 97.
He
comes in, didn't he? Comes in court with his moustache on.
He does indeed. 97, and then to play in 2009. It's remarkable. Anyway, Simon Shaw, definitely. There we go.
So good. I like that. If you could pick any sport to be a professional sportsman in, which one would you go for?
Do you know what? I rolled the dice at rugby and didn't get there, but I would probably say right now, I'd love to be a professional golfer. Oh, yeah. I'd love to be, but don't get me wrong. No, rugby's the answer, but I'd love to be professional golf. Oh, yeah. Oh.
For longevity, isn't it? Longevity and earnings, golfing's a great one.
Just being able to hit a 5-iron onto a green, just be unbelievable. Yeah.
Golf is not a sport I've ever been able to do.
No, awful thing.
Never
Don't start.
Awful no. Awful I don't know if you did this earlier, but you do it both. Gym or run?
Gym.
Smash some tin about. That's it.
Throw some weights around rather than run. Although I've been called out for one of those 5Ks, so I better get trainers on.
See, no one's done me for that yet, but I've been practicing just in case. I can't run properly. I run at 6 minute 15, something like that, kilometers, and I just cannot get quicker. And only recently I've broken it down to about 5 minutes. But it's been a lot of sprint training. It's mainly because this online learning. I've done about 400 HIIT sessions for the kids. So I've actually, there's no better time for me to have a decent rig than it is now.
Yeah.
So what am I looking at now? Last one, and you may not have had this, but I've had so many. How many quizzes have you done in lockdown?
I did one last night. We came third, won one on the weekend. So many, I can't even tell you, double figures.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
And I've hosted one, and I do you know what? I do love them. It's been great. But why am I? Here's a question for you. Why am I in contact with my mates on Zoom, FaceTime, and whatnot more than I would be?
I know.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like once a week. I'm seeing my mates, and a mate of mine in Dubai who's a teacher. Funnily enough, we'll go. Just WhatsApp, texts, and we're video calling every Friday night for a glass of wine and a chat. And it's why didn't that happen before lockdown?
I know, and I don't actually like being so accessible. People, I seem to be getting caught on house party and all these things so quickly.
Yeah,
but I'm hosting the family quiz on Friday, and we've got one round which is going to be the primary school round, where we're going to get some very hard but obvious primary school questions for geography, English, maths, and test the Gibbses, see how they do.
Here's a geography starter for you. 10 countries that have only got 4 letters in them. That'll get them going. That'll get them going. Get that one.
I'm writing that down now.
That got everybody. There's plenty with 5. But yeah.
Right.
10 with 4. Good.
Russell, thanks so much for today.
No, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Really great chatting.
Right. Speak soon, buddy.
Speak soon. Cheers,
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye.
Care.